Hi everyone, Mike again with MEG Motors. Today we're going to be looking at this Craftsman backpack blower. It belongs to a friend of mine. He picked it up at a garage sale. He originally told me that it ran, but when he brought it here and we tried to start it, it was blowing raw fuel out of the exhaust, which is typically a sign that the diaphragm in the carburetor's failed and the carburetor's flooding severely. And so we weren't able to get it to start. We're going to go ahead and pull the carburetor off and check and see if that's really what the problem is, and if not, we'll look further and see if we can figure out why it was doing what it was doing. So let's reset the camera and we'll get started. All right, so we're going to start with pulling the cover off the air cleaner. Pull the element. Got a couple of screws here. All right, we got a throttle cable here held on with a couple of nuts. All right, so there's our carburetor off. Looking for a name brand on this one. I'm not sure what kind it is. It may even be Chinese. Usually if they don't have a name on them, it means they're Chinese. Yeah, I don't see a name on it, so it might be Chinese. We're gonna reset the camera a little bit and we'll go ahead and open this carburetor up and see if we can see what's going on inside. Okay, so let's get started on this carburetor. This is a or a barrel style carburetor. You may be used to seeing carburetors that have a butterfly valve to control the throttle opening. This one actually has a barrel inside. Hopefully you can see this. And as we turn, it opens the barrel. The important thing on these carburetors, as this throttle quadrant turns, it should rise up out of the body of the carburetor. So hopefully you can see how that one rises up. And so when it rises up, it changes the needle inside the venturi of the carburetor and allows more fuel to come in. And so it's important that this quadrant rises up as you open the throttle. This one seems to be working fine. So we're going to go ahead and open this up. Like most of these diaphragm carburetors, this is both a fuel pump and a metering chamber. So they're pretty cool little devices. They do a lot of work with very few moving parts. So we're going to take this part off here. I'm surprised this one is actually having troubles because this whole unit actually looks like it's almost brand new. But so there's our primer bulb. It actually looks really good. It's still clear. A lot of times these will turn yellow with age and become hard and brittle, but this one feels really good. And then, oh yeah, so here's our here's our metering diaphragm. This is what controls fuel into and out of the carburetor, or into the metering chamber at least. And you can see this one is stuck in the down position. And so when it's stuck in the down position like that, it's going to push on this lever. This is the metering lever, which is going to raise the needle off the seat and allow fuel to flood into this carburetor under pressure, which is going to flood the engine pretty severely. So this diaphragm should be soft and flexible, and hopefully you can hear that. This one is as hard as a rock. So that's definitely what the problem is. So with it stuck down like that, it would have flooded the engine severely. All right, and so then we're gonna look here. This is our fuel pump. This is the fuel pump side of things, and this diaphragm right here, this membrane is the fuel pump. So we want to make sure it doesn't have any rips or tears, and we need these two flaps right here. Hopefully you can see those flaps. Those two flaps have to be soft and flexible and not torn or damaged, and they all look good. So I think we're in good shape on this one. We're going to go ahead and take the needle out. So I'm going to hold the metering lever, take this screw out. And you want to be careful with this because it is spring loaded. It's a very small spring, and if it flies away, you're likely never to find it. So here's our needle. It's a metal needle with a rubber tip, and that tip should be black. You can see this one's kind of a silver color. So they get this sort of tarnish on them that turns them a silver color. So we're going to clean that off with a little carburetor cleaner. You want to be careful with the carburetor cleaner because it will swell some rubber parts. So I like to put a little on the rag and then just spin the needle in there. You can see the dirt coming off of there. Keep doing that until it doesn't bring any more dirt off of the needle. And then I'll dry the needle off. Still getting just a little bit. That's pretty clean. So now you see we have a nice black needle. Hopefully you can see that. Alright, everything else looks pretty clean in here. So we're just going to put this one back together. I'm going to put the needle in first. I'm going to put the spring in second. And then I like to assemble the metering lever onto the shaft. Then I'll set it down on the spring first, and then I'll work it under the needle before I put the screw in. So we'll set it on the spring, work it under the needle. Then you can check from the side. Hopefully you can see that the spring is in the right place on the needle, on the metering lever. We'll hold that down and get our screw back in place. With that intact, we'll put this all back together. I'm gonna step away for just a second and get us a good metering diaphragm. Okay, so here we have our new diaphragm. The carburetor, the gasket goes on first. It always seems to me like you would want the diaphragm on first, but it doesn't. The gasket goes on first. And then the diaphragm goes on with this metal disc facing down. Just like that. And then we'll put this part on. This part. Put our screws back in. All right, so all we have left to do now is put this back on the blower and see if we've fixed the problem. All right, so first we're going to put our throttle cable back on. And snug that down. Going to check to make sure that full throttle on the trigger gives us full throttle at the carburetor, and it does. All right, so next we need our air filter housing, our gasket, and we're going to put that right back on. All right, we have two fuel lines to connect. All right, we have two fuel lines to connect here. Big one goes on the big fitting, and the other one goes on the little fitting. What we should see when we pump the primers, we should see fuel coming up out of this fuel line, and going into the carburetor. And there it comes. We should eventually see it. Yep, now it's coming back down the return line. Alright, so nothing left to do but try to start this up and see if we fix the problem. Alright, so with our engine primed, we're going to go to full choke. The kill switch is momentary, so it's always on. And we're going to see if this thing will start. Oh, look at that. Sounds good. So I think that fixed it. Apparently somebody had leaned the carburetor way out, probably when there was flooding and they were trying to make it run correctly. So I had to use again the special adjustment tools. This one is splined, so you can buy a set of adjustment tools on Amazon. There's 5 or 6 different ones. Had to open the mixture needle up about a turn and a half, and now it sounds good. So I think this one's ready to go back to work.